Let's start with the real problem here. Building costs are not only about prices, they are about mistakes. And I see the same cost leaks repeatedly. Wrong specifications, buying from middlemen without warranty, fake brands, inconsistency, batch quality, and the double handling because the finishings don't match. So look, here's a simple rule. Finishes are where budgets die. We're talking of your tiles, sanitary ware, doors, aluminum, kitchen fittings, lighting. These items can quietly add 40 to 80% extra if you're not careful. Another issue is supply uncertainty, and we've experienced this over and over again. You order something locally and then the color changes, stock is out, or the delivery is late, and now the project schedule collapses. And when the project schedule collapses, we all know what happens. It has got a direct effect on the money that you will spend on the project, because the longer the project takes, the more money you are going to be spending. Most people think that building is expensive because building materials are expensive, but the truth be told, it's not that. The actual fact of the matter is that your product passes way too many hands before it gets to you. I'm talking of different levels of transfer, from the manufacturer to the agents to the reseller to the middlemen. All those middlemen, they are adding markup at each and every stage, and by the time the product reaches to you, it's like 500% from the original price. So let's just take a deep dive into how this thing actually works. So at the very top, let's say number one, you have got your Chinese manufacturer, and here is where the real price exists, because these guys control the production and they control the real price of a product. I can give you examples of different products. For example, your aluminum from the manufacturer, you are getting it at around $80 per square meter. That is completion, including the glazing and the accessories. And then you're looking at your sanitary ware, it's plus or minus $120 a set. So these are like the original prices, that is the manufacturer's prices. But then it doesn't end there. From the manufacturer, we go on to the second stage, or the second level. So in the second level, you have what the Chinese exporter, right? Exporter, or the trading company. And what these guys do are, they exist simply because in most cases, factories don't want to deal with individuals or people who are buying a limited number of products, because they are in the business of manufacturing things in bulk, and their profit is in economies of scale. So if they produce a huge number of quantities, for example 1 million tapes, for instance, they make their profit, right, by pushing what is called economies of scale. So the more the products they can push in a certain period of time, that's where their profit is. But now when you come as an individual, you probably want maybe 10 or 5 units or items. Now you won't have access to the factories. They would rather deal with people who are buying in bulk. So that's why these people exist, the Chinese exporters or the trading companies. And these have got, in most cases, arrangement with the factories, because they would get things in bulk. But now, here's the twist of the story. These guys are in business. So if a product is $80, for example, like the aluminum that we've been talking about, right? When a Chinese exporter gets into the game, right, they're going to add 10 to 25% markup. So we've got an $80 product. Now it's like 25% more because of the second layer of the value of the supply chain, right? It doesn't end there. We go on to number 3, the third level. And this is international logistics. And that's where you've got your shipping and insurance, right? So now costs include sea freights, insurance, container handling, and port charges. And this typically adds another 15 to 30%, right, from the second price. So your Chinese manufacturer has got a real price, and then the Chinese exporter adds on 25%. And then you have got the international logistics, which then adds another 15 to 30%. So let's just say they add another 30%. Right, and this is only 2 hands from the manufacturer, right? But it's inevitable, because now these guys are making profit because they are handling things in bulk. So from the Chinese exporter, there is another 30%. So an $80 product originally is now 25% at the second stage, and then 30% of the second stage. So the price keeps on going up. From stage 3, we go on to stage 4. Then enters the African importer or the African dealer, right? And usually, from our standpoint or in our situation from Zimbabwe, we are mostly getting things from South Africa. So this is a South African importer. And usually South African distributor, right, they pay duties, they finance the stock, and they have to deal with the risk of currency inconsistencies, especially in our own context where we don't have our own currency. So they have to cap all those things. And the markup now, this is where it gets insane. These guys are going to add on 80 to 100% markup. So this product has got a 25% on the second link, and then on the third link there's another 30%, and then on the fourth link it gets insane. These guys are really in business. They're going to add 80 to 100%, right? So the price keeps on going up and up. So the African importer from South Africa, in this case, because South Africa has got a port, they have added their markup, right? And then we go on to stage 5, right? Stage 5, we've got transport and border costs. So you're going to be faring something that has originally been manufactured from China, and then now it finds its way through an exchange of hands into South Africa, right? And into South Africa, there are port charges, and there is transport charge. And again, if you look at this, then that's another 10 to 20% markup. So you're going to add 10 to 20% markup for transport charges and border clearances. And from there, the product then enters Zimbabwe. And then we've got a wholesaler or a hardware chain. And that's where you've got your house stairs, your bowler hardware, and all these other hardwares that are plotted around the country. And then these guys now, they cover rent, they've got staff, they have to deal with losses, they have to deal with Zimra again, they have to inject a working capital, and these guys are really in business. And guess what happens? Another 40% markup, because they are in business. They have to keep the inventory running, they have to keep the stuff running. So there is another 40% markup. The product now is exchanged. Now it's 5 different levels or tiers or hands, if you want to take it. So still at the same point, it hasn't reached you, the end user. And then from the wholesaler or hardware chain, it then gets to the retailer. Now, who is the retailer? These are the guys that we are normally seeing in plotted around the capital city with small boutique shops where someone is selling just tiles, another one is selling just plumbing, and the other one has got a small shop where they're selling lighting, for example. And these are like the last level now before it reaches you. And these guys are in business. They had another 15 to 30% markup from the previous level, which is at the hardwares or the retail chain, right? And then you've got another 30%. So from the seller before the customer, small volumes, high risk, and survival margins, right? That contributes their 30%, sometimes 40%. They have to deal with currency inconsistencies again and the risk of the currency changing. So you see now, just to give you a clearer picture of how exactly this is working, we have got 7 hands that touch a product before it finally reaches you. At each and every stage, there's a price increase, there is a markup. So a product which leaves the Chinese factory at $80 now reaches you, right? Now it would be like 500 or 600% on top. So multiply an $80 product probably 5 or 6 times. So an $80 product end up reaching your hands at a cost of like $400 to $500. So now this has got an effect now in the overall building cost of Zimbabwe, hence leading to this build cost crisis that we have, because the product goes into contacts with about 7 sets of hands, 7 levels of exchange before the product reaches an end user. The reality on the ground is you don't save money by negotiating hard on Zimbabwean suppliers, but then what you have to do is to analyze the 7 hands that touch your product before it reaches there. So the truth of the matter is you don't save money by negotiating too hard on Zimbabwean suppliers, but you actually make a cost saving by entering the value chain at the correct level. So the advice of the day is, if you could get to the manufacturer then that's probably the best entry point into a value chain. But at least remove 5 or 6 steps and get it as closer to the manufacturer as possible. And by so doing, you will see that you really control how much you end up building your project for.